Hi, this is May.
And I'm Joy.
Welcome to the QWERTY Writing Life Podcast, where we have candid chats about our creative lives.
May and I are friends, writers, and creatives who want to share our endeavors out loud.
On this podcast, we're here to encourage each other, and you too,
and share tools we've discovered or made up,
so you can follow your passions with a little support. So grab your tea
or your coffee,
and let's get started. Okay, yeah. So, hello, everybody.
Hello.
This is an extra special episode because we have come back from the amazing Mississippi Book Festival, and we cannot wait to tell you everything. So
Yes.
We'll get right into our creative weeks, and then we'll slip on over to our recap and our responses to the Mississippi Book Festival. So we're so glad you're here this week. We're excited to share this with somebody other than each other. So, Joy, what did you do this week?
All right, so this week I've been very busy getting ready for the launch of my book. So I've had a lot of website updates and putting together media kits for bookstores and press and reviewers and things like that. So it's been a lot of creativity in making those things look good, which has been fun to do. And then I've also gotten the chance to visit a whole bunch of outstanding bookstores. I'm so excited. I love, of course I love bookstores. I mean, who doesn't? They're like the best thing ever. And so last week, my family actually made the Mississippi Book Festival part of a little mini vacation, and we spent a couple of days in Vicksburg right before. And Vicksburg is just the coolest town. There's so much history there. There's so many great things there. There are so many just absolutely adorable shops in the downtown area, and one of those is Lorelei Books, which I'm actually wearing the shirt. See, Lorelei Books. Shout out to Kelly at Lorelei Books. And so we got to spend a lot of time there. We stayed in an Airbnb right above the bookstore, which, you know, another dream of mine, living above a bookstore. So that was fun. And then I got to go to 3 bookstores in New Orleans today, which I've been to all 3 of these before, but it was fun to actually go in with a kit of stuff and my book and be like, hey, I wrote one of these things. And so that's been a lot of fun.
So some cool stuff is happening over here too. Not nearly as cool as what you've got going on. I cannot, it's just, I'm living vicariously through you right now. It's so wonderful. And I'm feeling all of the emotions because you have worked so hard for this. And I've watched you really just work and struggle and dream and cry, all of it. And it's all becoming. And I just love this to see this happening. So we've got a little bit of becoming over here for a project that I'm working on, poetry and art. And so I have been getting poetry together. And the first thing that I've been doing is going through all of my notebooks that I have filled up. So if you're watching on YouTube, then you can see me hold up this notebook to see all the Post-it notes and stuff. That these are pages that have potential poetry that's going to be used in this project. And so here's another notebook that I have filled up, but I have not gone through yet. So I've got to do all of this stuff over here. So super fun going through and just seeing the memories. Some of these I haven't looked through in a year. So this one has been probably 2 years for this guy.
Oh, wow.
So I don't even know what's in here. It's going to be like a treasure hunt. So I'm going through, and I've already taken stuff from the current notebook that I'm using, and I've put it into a document so far, and then I'll pick and choose from there. And if I need to write new poetry for this project, then I'll write new poetry. But I'll need to have, I think it's 12 smaller poems that go for 4 different themes. Yes, I think that's right. And I think I'm saying that properly. So August 30th, I'll be getting together with my partner for this project, and we'll be doing some of the art stuff, and it's going to be pretty exciting.
So
So,
exciting. I'm so excited for y'all.
so that is happening here. Let's see, is there anything else? Oh, I went to a little thing called the Mississippi Book Festival.
Oh, yes. Just a little old thing.
Just a little old thing.
Us and
And
9,300 of our favorite people.
9,300 people, guys. 9,000. And that's just the people that they could count. Like, you never know. People are coming and going, so I'm not really sure if you even know exactly how many people actually go. But that's about 2,000 more than there were last year. So,
It's crazy.
yes. And somehow, I still feel at home at
Mm-hmm.
that place, surrounded by 9,300 people.
Yeah.
And that's not a normal thing for me, guys. That's almost like a bit of a miracle. Like Jesus just came and laid hands on the whole. But I'm so thankful that for the festival and for everything that it offers. And I think we're going to talk. In fact, I know we are going to talk about that today. So, Joy, well, can you tell us a little bit about your experience?
Yeah, definitely. So, like I said, we decided to make our little mini family vacation centered around the book festival this year. And so, in the past, I've always gone with May, and it's just been the two of us, and it's kind of been our thing. And this year, I brought my family, and so my kids got to go for their very first time, and they got to meet Dave Pilkey, who, if you don't know, if you don't have kids, like, I'm thinking that if you don't have kids, that's the only reason you wouldn't know who Dave Pilkey is, because if you've got kids, you know who he is. Okay, Captain Underpants, Dogman, yes, all of that kind of stuff. So it was their first time to go, and they got to meet him. And it was just so neat to see the excitement that they both had, both of my kids. And of course, my son's the one who really loves him. But my daughter, I was surprised at just how excited she was about meeting him and being there and being part of all of this. They gave away some great things to all the kids. The first 500 kids got a book, his newest book, For Whom the Ball Rolls. I love his titles. So cute. Anyway, and so we happened to be in that group of the first 500 kids, and then they got to go and meet him afterward and all that kind of stuff. And so I've always, every year, I've always gotten books for them signed at the festival to bring back to them, but it was just the difference of them actually being there and getting it in person was kind of neat. And so I've got to give major kudos to Dave Pilkey, to his team, the people who traveled with him, the two ladies that were with him, and then all of the volunteers that were part of it. Guys, they did an incredible job. They really did. Dave was super sweet, super thoughtful, just very with every single kid that was there. Like, he was all ears to whatever they had to say. And his team was just, getting people through, taking pictures for every family and stuff like that. And then the volunteers were just great, because that was a whole lot of people in not a lot of space, and they were getting us through there. It was amazing. I was very impressed. So major kudos out to them. They made every single kid there feel very special, and that's not easy to do. So, yeah. So that was the way that my morning began, and that was a lot of fun. And then they kind of went off. My husband was great. He took the kids, and they did some more stuff while I got to go off and start with the panels. And one of the things that I really appreciated this year was Author's Alley. So they have the booksellers section, and then they have Author's Alley. And I really liked the way Author's Alley was set up this year. In fact, you and I both commented on this. It just felt easier to walk through, easier to kind of see the authors that were there. And a lot of these are indie authors. And it was just really neat to see what they had. And I love going to that part, because these are my fellow indie authors, and I like to try to support them whenever I can. I met Janet Ferguson, who is a Mississippi author. I bought her book. This one is Magnolia Storms. Now, guys, she's got a lot of books out. She's a Christian fiction writer, and I don't know how many books she has. It's quite a few, but I was drawn to this one because it was set right after Katrina, and in Ocean Springs. And I was in Gaucher, which is just the town over, as a reporter for the Mississippi Press during Katrina. So this is my past right here, my history. And so I knew, as she was telling me what this book was about, I knew this was the one that I wanted. So, and I'm so glad I'm actually, getting through it very quickly. It's a very good book. I'm enjoying this read a lot. And she's super sweet. I enjoyed meeting her. So that was really cool. I just needed more time. I didn't get to really go to every table that I wanted to and that kind of stuff. And then in Booksellers Row, I always loved that. Of course, Kelly with Lorelei Books had her booth there. And then there was a fun booth, Coffee Pros. And it's a bookstore and coffee shop in Jackson. And that was just so much fun. I just love their name. And then Big House Books, which is another one. I didn't talk to them this year. I talked to them for a while last year. I think we both did. And so basically what they do is they take books, they accept donations of books that they send to prisoners. And I just absolutely love that. So it's a great organization. And I know that there's another one, I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but that's in New Orleans. So we have a similar organization here, which is really cool. But something that we did different this year was we actually gave ourselves time away from a panel. So in the past, we would be like, we're going to go to a panel every single time. And this year, we actually had a little time off there in the middle of the day to browse and to talk to people and to kind of just take it all in. And I'm very glad that we did that. I don't know about you, but I'm glad.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, definitely need that. I mean, it's like we want to go to everything, but then you miss just being out.
In the middle of the crowd and being able to speak to the people in the independent bookstore booths and it's being able to speak to Big House Books and the authors that are in Authors Alley. I actually think that I didn't make it to a whole section. Now that I'm thinking about it, there was a section of tents up on a hill.
Yes, we never even went over there.
We never even got a chance to do that. And by the time we finished with our 4:00 panel, everything was packed up and gone. Yeah. So we do, guys, if you do decide to go, then if you get to, the book festival about 45 minutes early, then you'll have a little bit more time in the beginning. That's something I did different this year, and it was really good.
Yeah.
Because sometimes things that are really cool sell out fast.
That's true. That's true.
I got this really cool tote.
Oh, yes.
Hold on, I got it. So if you're on YouTube, then you can see my really cool tote bag that I got from Lemuria Books tent, and it says "Talk QWERTY to me." So if you don't know this about me yet, here's a little insight into May. I really love puns. I love puns so much. They tickle me. And so I saw this book, and I'll be honest, and honestly, I saw this book last year. Somebody was carrying that tote around last year, and I thought, oh, this tote is so wonderful. I took a picture of it. It's probably going to be in my memories the next time that rolls around for last year, my Facebook memories. But I saw that there was one left, y'all, and it was not even 9:00 yet, and the first panel didn't start until 9:30. So I snatched that baby up, I'm not going to lie. So surprisingly, getting there about 8:45 worked out really well for me in that area. And Authors Row, I felt, and I think we made this comment too to each other at dinner, but I felt like Authors Row was, it just looked a lot more professional to me. There were people there, their books looked good, they were displayed well. Some people had these table topper things that just really made them stand out in the crowd. Some people had embroidered tablecloths, and so there was a children's book author that had her children's book involved unicorns, and she had headbands that had ears and the unicorn horn and all of this glitter.
They were so cute.
Adorable things, and just really creative ways of expressing themselves and the themes of their books. And I was really impressed with Authors Alley this year, especially. And in Authors Alley, I got a couple of books. So this is one of them. And if you're on YouTube, you're seeing a bird book. And it's a children's book called The Tempestuous Trial of Maybelline Mayweather. It's really dramatic. And I love it so much. I was actually drawn to the table because of the illustrations. They were just so lovely. And come to find out, it was a mother and a son who was doing this book together. The mother was the illustrator and the son wrote it. And it's just this quirky little children's book about this chicken who is blamed for stealing another bird's egg. And she did it. So she goes on trial and has to prove herself innocent. And her lawyer's name is Atticus Peck. And the opposing counsel's name is Canary Mason, and her name is, of course, Maybelline Mayweather, which is just an adorable name. I connected with this book. So the mom was there, and she asked me how many kids I had and that sort of thing. The mom was drawing little, like, impromptu illustrations in this book. So she took my fingerprints and then turned them into little chickens. So this is what I would look like if I was a little chicken and my little boys were little chicks. So on YouTube, I'm standing in the middle, and I have a little hat on, and it's kind of adorable. So if you're listening to this, just trust me. It's great.
It is. It's super cute.
And then I also met another author in Authors Alley. So the toughest part for me as an introvert was Authors Alley, I'll be honest with you. Was because there were just so many people who were there, and then you're walking down and these tables are, there, and the authors are there, and you kind of want to speak to them, but then your introverted self is saying, maybe I don't need to. It was a little bit much for me. But there was one author there. We kind of made eye contact, and I saw the title of her books, and it was a pun. So I had to go. So PJ DeVere, I bought 2 of her books while we were there. We had a nice conversation. It was a little rocky at first because of me, just being me, and I was a little overwhelmed, but she made me feel very comfortable, and I finally got out that I was also an author and that we had this podcast and stuff, and so I even gave her a card, y'all. I gave out my first card. So it felt, and to somebody who wasn't a friend or a family member, so that was kind of exciting. So her books are Poor Choices, right here, and the pun is poor, so instead of P-O-O-R, it's P-O-U-R, so very, very cute. And the other one is called Poorhouse, so there is Poorhouse right there, if you're looking on YouTube. And we'll put this stuff in the show notes, so it'll be fun. So, yeah, I really enjoyed Authors Alley, and just giving ourselves that time to be able to enjoy that part of the festival as well as the knowledge that we received. It's pretty great.
And, another thing they had this year that they didn't before was the giant orange cube on top of the book. That was like the perfect place to take pictures. I don't know whose idea that was, but I loved it. Whoever came up with that. It was so much fun.
To the cube thinker upper.
So I know I really haven't talked about the panels yet, but I feel like it's time for you to kind of share like some of your reactions to the panels that you went to.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first panel that I went to was the Women in Fiction panel, and I just adored it. I had so much fun. I went with, I had another writer friend ride with me. So shout out to Kimberly De Lorenz. Hey
Kimberly.
And I was able to walk with her through her first. It was almost like being there my first time again because I got to watch her expressions. Mm-hmm. And it's just this sense of awe that really happens the first time you go to the Mississippi Book Festival. So we're sitting in this panel, and it's Women in Fiction, and Lynn Roberts was the moderator, and she is from Square Books in Oxford, Mississippi. And there were 3 other authors on there. It was Mamta Chowdhury, and her book that she was representing was Haunting Paris. She has a background in TV and radio, and then she's written this book that just sounds so amazing. And then Lisa Patton was also there, and she was representing her book Rush. And she has a background in music, and I thought that was pretty interesting. I'll tell you why in just a moment. Deb Spera was also there, and her book is Call Your Daughter Home, which I'm going to buy all these books, by the way, just, her background is in television. And so this is what I thought was really interesting in all of these authors. All 3 of them have had a previous career, and yet they've either toned it down or turned from that original career and chose to write these stories that were on their hearts. And I just thought that was a really cool thing that here we are, and a lot of times we're in a career and in a path that is maybe fulfilling, but there's something else, or it's not fulfilling and there's something else. And these are 3 women who are sitting on a panel who are talking to us about other women in fiction. And it was just a really inspiring visual for me. So that's that. So a couple of nuggets that I got from that talk was Lisa Patton said at one point that she had to get to the point where she loved her story so much that she was willing to go through anything, including getting over the fear that she had, to get her art out there. And Deb Spera had a really interesting remark too on the question, how do you specifically work on your craft? And she said that she had to give herself permission to fail. And what that looked like for her was getting her computer, walking outside on her back porch, and making herself sit down for an hour and write. Whether it was good, bad, ugly, whatever, she had to write for an hour. And what she found was in that, in allowing herself to have that failure, she found freedom, which was just kind of beautiful, because she said that as she continued to do that 1 hour a day, she found comfort in it, and she found habit in that, and then she found that she wanted to do it more than an hour. And so sometimes an hour turned into 2 hours, turned into 3 hours, and that sort of thing. So it just became a part of her. And one of the sweet nuggets that we got from Mamta, she had a craft tip as well, and she said that as she writes, if the story starts to bore her and the language becomes cliche, she knows that she's not writing the proper part of the story. And I thought, that's something that I really need to evaluate and see if that's also true for me. And so that's the first panel that I went to, and I just, it was, you can see how much I enjoyed it, or you can hear it in my voice. So the second panel that we went to was the best debut novels, and I enjoyed this panel so much. I actually enjoyed it more than I expected to enjoy it. I thought I was just going to hear about these new books that came out, but these authors had such a passion about these stories that they have told, and they had reasons, man, for writing these books. And it wasn't just because, I just thought I'd throw this together and see what happened. No, there was like reasons, and I just loved the passion that they had behind their story, the love for it, the compassion, the empathy for each other's stories. It was just really fabulous. So Katie Simpson was the moderator for that panel, and she is also an author. And the authors that were there for their debut novels were Juliet Grimes, and her book is this title, y'all. Just wait. Okay, here it is. Juliet Grimes wrote The 7th or 8th Deaths of Stella Fortuna. Don't you just want to read that immediately? It's so compelling. Julia Phillips wrote Disappearing Earth, which it's about kidnapping like teenage kidnapping in Russia and stuff is just, feels like it's going to break my heart when I read it. And then Maurice Carlos Ruffin is a New Orleans native, and he wrote We Cast a Shadow. Maurice, by the way, loves short stories as much as we do. One of the things that Maurice said in the panel, which I thought was really interesting, is that he saw his narrator in his book, We Cast a Shadow, as an avatar of himself getting answers for questions that he couldn't find answers for.
Interesting.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
So just a really interesting way of maybe looking inside yourself and figuring out what questions you have unanswered that maybe you could indirectly answer through fiction. Juliet wrote her book, The Seventh or Eighth Deaths of Stella Fortuna, and she was hoping to garner empathy for an older generation. And it's loosely based off of her grandmother's experience, and her grandmother almost died 7 or 8 times. So, yeah, so she kind of created this story to go along with those experiences. And her grandmother was an immigrant, and it deals with a look at older generations and kind of the things that immigrant generations had to go through in order to survive and to have their family survive. And so some of those experiences make them a little crass or hard sometimes. And we should have a bit of more compassion for the things that they had to go through, just so that we could be who we are in this place. So, and then Julia, she mentioned that her theme drove her story, and it was the theme of the fact that the separation between us feeling safe and us being not safe is an illusion, that there is no separation at all. And she learned that when she was volunteering in the ER in order to help people who are in rape and abuse crisis situations who come in. So she realized that these people are just like her, and these things that happen to them could happen to anyone, and she wanted to shine a light on that, and Disappearing Earth helps do that. So, and they're talking about their books, and you feel their passion, and you think about your own writing and what you want to share and why you want to share it, and it really just emblazes you on the inside to just finish your project and to keep going and to get it out there in the world because somebody needs it. Just by repeating that, aren't you just like, yes, I'm going to go write everything.
I'm going to write all the books.
All the things. So those were my two panels that I chose to go to regarding craft and that sort of thing. So the other 2 panels that I went to was Ann Patchett and Natasha Trethewey. And Ann Patchett was just like #goals for me. She talked about all of these little strange stories that linked with each one of her novels and how she progressed as a writer through each one of those novels. I was like, one day I want to be like her. Funny, sweet, and cute. That's all there is.
And speaking of living vicariously, like the stories that she told of like her travels and like all of the things that she's done, and yes, quite incredible. And I just loved having, like, she basically took us through every single one of her published books and told us some little nugget, some little story behind the story, or something about the dedication or the title or the like something for each one. And it was interesting because I waited in line to have her sign my book, which I got. This is the one of hers that I chose to get this time, Truth and Beauty. And this is actually nonfiction, and this is about a dear friend of hers who passed away. And just the story behind this, that she wrote this out of grief, and this is how she grieved, is how she wrote this. But anyway, I chose to get this book. And so as I was waiting in line, I met a reader who was not able to go to her talk. And I was able to share a couple of the stories with her. She showed me which of her books she had, and I told her, oh, this is the story she told about that. And she was just so appreciative. She's like, I'm so glad you told me these things. And I was like, I'm so glad I got to, And that was cool. That was a moment where I was able to connect with that reader and gave her my card, maybe she'll read my book one day, that kind of thing. And it was just neat to talk with her. But I loved what Ann Patchett shared and about each of those books. That's just something special.
Yeah. Something else special happened with
Yes,
Ann Patchett.
I was a little bit of a fangirl and felt really silly doing this, but I brought a copy of my book on the off chance that perhaps she would accept it. Our books happen to be coming out on the same day next month. Next month, her book, The Dutch House, comes out on September 24th, which is the same day as my book. So I just asked her if she would like a copy of my book, and she so graciously said, "Well, of course." And so it made my day. And then her signing to me was super sweet. It was about my publication, and she wished me well on my publication. And I just thought that was super sweet. I'll put it up here for those of you on YouTube. You can kind of see. She said, "To Joy, have a wonderful publication, and thank you for your book." And then she signed it. And that's just so special.
It is. It just feels a little bit like validation. And I know that we don't necessarily live off of that, but it sure is a nice frosting on top of that cake.
Yes.
Absolutely. So yes, Ann Patchett is fabulous. If you haven't read her, please do. She's just fabulous. And then we went to Natasha Trethewey, and I adore Natasha Trethewey. If we're talking about fangirl, this would be my fangirl moment, I suppose. But she was phenomenal. She's the National Poet Laureate, but more than that, so she writes so beautifully with such honesty and with such raw emotion. I just really respect and appreciate, and her poems are like water to me. Like, you just got to drink it. You just got to drink it all in. I thought a couple of things that she said that really spoke to me was that she knew that she needed a poem. She needed to be a poet because of these two external wounds that she needed to bring light on. And the first was to spread the history of Mississippi. And she is a mixed race child, and she grew up in the 60s and 70s, and that, like, marrying, mixed race marriages were illegal when she was growing up and that sort of thing. And she always felt exposed and evaluated all the time. And that's got to be a hard way to grow up, and sometimes if you are one of the majority, you don't understand that, and you can get a glimpse into that, and you can learn empathy for people who feel this way through her poetry, and I just adore that. She also had a second wound, and that she exposes in her poetry, and that is one of domestic violence, and her mother had been a victim of domestic violence. And she writes about that too, and she brings that to light as well. And so she feels like these are her callings to talk about this and to not let it be silent or become silent and something that we just overlook. So she does it in such a beautiful way and such an intellectual way as well. So she also uses her poetry to express moments that could be in a painting or in another artist's life. She wrote a nonfiction book about Hurricane Katrina, and her latest book is called Monuments. And you can actually see these excerpts from all of her poetry books from the beginning to the end, and how it arcs her work with these two particular themes, and how it all kind of comes together. What's going to be really interesting, she said that next fall, I believe, she is writing her first memoir, and it's called Memorial Drive, and it is the story of her mother. And she's written so much poetry about the subject too. It's going to be very interesting to see how the poetry and the memoir complement each other and maybe contrast each other as well. I'm very excited about those two things, like looking into those two things as somebody who writes poetry and also someone who writes prose. So I'm going to see how much we're alike or different. So I'm excited about that. And I also thought it was pretty interesting what she said about the difference between poetry and prose, because I've always felt that my poetry is much more, it shows much more insight into who I am as a person and the experiences that I've been through, versus my prose, which actually my prose is fiction. So this might be different because hers is memoir. But she felt particularly that poetry was actually covered herself a little bit more, because you're able to hide a little bit behind the form and the stanzas and these restrictions that you put around your words, and having to say something in such a concise way that you could actually be meaning something different whenever you're saying these 4 words, that sort of thing. That there was actually a bit of a mask in poetry that she felt that she could not find in prose, in the vehicle of the sentence. And she felt that way because the sentence has less of boundaries. It's more of an unwieldy thing, like a conversation, and you can accidentally say too much. So as I write poetry and as I write prose now, I'm going to be thinking about those two things and seeing if I think Natasha Trethewey is to see if I think that her truth is also my truth in the situation. Because right now I feel a little bit different, but I also write fiction, so just thinking.
What would be really interesting is, and this would be a really cool, I'm going to give you a QWERTY challenge. Here we go.
Oh.
You should take some of your poems and try to write them prose. Try to write about that experience and compare and just see, just try it on a couple. I would be very curious about that as well, just to read it in your own stuff.
I actually might take that challenge at some point when I have finished a few of these projects. I think I might put it on the list. And I would like to finish it before next year, because it would be interesting to maybe re-engage Natasha Trethewey in a more palatable manner this year. Y'all, it was bad. I cried and snotted on her white shirt. It was so bad. It happened, so I guess I got to own it. But that would be interesting to see if I could maybe even test it out on myself and see if I either change my thought about poetry and prose, or if I hold true to what is my truth right now, which is poetry's harder.
So, another thing that I loved about the Natasha Trethewey panel was she did this with Beth Ann Fennelly, who is another poet from Mississippi, and they were just chatting. It was similar to what we do. They were just chatting. It was a chat between friends, and I loved that. I think that was the perfect setting and the perfect way to set up that discussion with Natasha Trethewey. I loved seeing that.
Yeah.
And there was one
and
other
her vulnerability.
Thing. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, she was just so open about everything up there. And she wasn't afraid to say some of the hard things, and she wasn't afraid to have a tear slip through. I just really appreciated that vulnerability as well, as someone who, is an onlooker.
Yeah. It actually began in a really cool way, and that was something else that we were talking about. So it started out with Taylor Mills, a local high school student, who, and you can say this better because I know you have it written down, she's the champion, or the state champion
for the Poetry Out Loud competition. So there's a federal competition for poetry, and there are high school students all over who memorize these poems and then present them. And boy, did Taylor present, man. You were feeling that poem, I had goosebumps on my arms. It was just such a gorgeous presentation of this really quite graphic poem, a little bit about death and about the beauty of life, and it was so well done. And you can totally see why she was the winner, and she deserves all of it. Just go ahead and give her all of the things, because she's fabulous.
She was wonderful. I mean, from the moment she stepped up on that podium, guys, she owned that room. Like she definitely, she presented herself very well. She's now a senior in high school, and she has a very bright future ahead of her.
Yes. So be looking for Taylor Mills. She's going to take over the world.
Yes. So, and then the very end, the very last thing, so all the panels were over, and, we're walking across, and, the booksellers have packed up, and the author's alley is empty, and we're walking through, and we're just letting it all wash over us, the whole day of just all of these amazing things. And we come walking up, and I see Holly Lang, who is the director of this amazing event that we love so much. And I'm like, oh my goodness, it's Holly Lang. And then I just kept walking. And we were on a mission. We were going to go and take a picture in front of the cube we mentioned earlier, right? And so I'm just, still walking. And I suddenly realized May's no longer beside me. And she is so incredible and amazing. May stopped and talked to her.
Well, I left all my dignity on Natasha Trethewey's shoulder, so I thought, why the heck not? So I just wanted to say thank you, because this whole journey started in 2016 at the Mississippi Book Festival for Joy and me particularly. Well, actually, it started at the zoo a couple of days before.
That's true.
But if it wasn't for the Mississippi Book Festival, I still feel like we might be just talking about this instead of actually doing. It was like a shot of adrenaline in 2016 that really just made things happen for us and made us realize that we wanted this so much that we made things happen. Not just like they just appeared and there was a book all of a sudden. It's not magic or anything, guys. You got to put in the work.
That isn't how it works.
No.
Just telling you.
So I just wanted to say thank you for such an amazing event that we've come to for the last 4 years, and we have marked this date as a time to review from last August to this August what we have done in order to fulfill this dream of ours. And so this year I was thinking back, and man, we have written you've written a book, and it's coming out on September the 24th. I have a book in revision. We have co-authored a nonfiction book. I'm working on poetry. Like, there are just so many things, and that's just like the highlight reel.
Podcast.
We launched this podcast. Oh my word, we launched this podcast.
Yeah.
So much that has happened, and I just wanted to say thank you. And doggone it, if she doesn't have a copy of Joy's book now.
She does. So now Ann Patchett and Holly Lang both have copies of my book. Neither one of them may ever read it, but they have copies. And that's pretty incredible, and it makes me feel really good.
Yeah, absolutely. So that is, like the highlight reel of the Mississippi Book Festival. And guys, if you haven't been, or if you have been considering going and you haven't made a commitment to that yet, just keep a lookout on the Mississippi Book Festival page for the date for next year. It's generally the third Saturday in the month of August, but the official date, I don't think it's come out quite yet. Oh, wow, guys. We are doing really, really well. The timer just went off, and I accidentally turned it off before we could hear it really well. So sorry. Pretend there's some heart music.
That works.
And so just to wrap this up really quickly, the third Saturday in the month of August is generally when the Mississippi Book Festival is. And if it changes, keep a look on our social medias and their webpage and their social medias. You will see a date because we will be counting down from the moment they post it for next year.
Absolutely.
Cannot wait to see what Joy and I are able to do by next year.
So many things will be out in the world by next year. That's so incredible. I'm super excited.
Yeah, and we'll be working on other things because that's what we do.
Yeah.
We've got a QWERTY challenge for you. If you are not in the state of Mississippi and you cannot attend this fabulous event, we have some homework. So, Joy, you want to tell us about it?
Okay, so we would love for you guys to find a similar event near you. Okay, now maybe it's not something as big as this kind of festival, but I bet you have some sort of literary festival or book festival or some sort of festival like this around you, some creative something. Find out about it and make plans to attend, okay? Also, if you've been to something similar, we really would love to hear about it. So I have had the opportunity to go to 3 book festivals in our area. I've been to the Alabama Book Festival, the Mississippi Book Festival, and the Louisiana Book Festival. And I've enjoyed each one of them. They each have their little things that are unique to those festivals. And so I just love festivals. So I want to hear about some that you've been to. I want to hear what you liked about it. We'd also like to hear why was it beneficial to you? What made you go? And what surprised you about it? Because I think that there were certainly surprises for us. I think the biggest surprise for us now is every year we're like, wow, how could that be even better than the year before? But it is.
They can throw a big cube in the yard and we're like, yes, it's even better.
At first I was upset because there weren't the little circle things on the ground. They have these little circles with cute little punny sayings and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, where are my circles? And then I saw the cube and it was all right with the world.
I just wanted to say a formal thank you to everyone at the Mississippi Book Festival who puts this on, from the main director, Holly Lang. You're wonderful. Thank you. And also the other people who work there, the organizers, the volunteers, the people who clean up afterwards. We are so, so thankful for all of you for bringing this event to life. And we are just in awe of your amazingness.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Well, everybody, we hope you have a wonderful creative week, and we will see you again next week.
Sounds great. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thanks for listening until the end.
Seriously, you're a trooper.
Do you think QWERTY Writing Life is the bomb?
May, you just said the bomb.
Don't you censor me.
If you think QWERTY Writing Life rocks ice for real,
oh my word,
please rate, review, and share us with others.
If you have questions about this week's episode or want to start a conversation, you can reach us by visiting QWERTYWritingLife.podbean.com.
We'll be back next week with more candid chats for you.